Sober Sundays with Mike Mechow. We are here at Floored Media in Rockville Center. Today, we are privileged to have my good friend Shayna join us today. Hi, Shayna.
Hello.
Happy you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
Shayna is one of my long-time friends. Known Shayna for quite a few years. How long about?
I would say probably around 7, 8 years.
So not too many people that I meet trying to do the things that you've been trying to do stick around for so long. How has this journey of recovery for Shayna been?
It's been pretty crazy, to be honest. It hasn't been easy. It's been actually far from easy. Only because I think for me, the very hard part is dealing with family that also suffers from addiction.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to bring it up. How about we start with some of the darkest points in Shayna's life?
I feel like there's just too many dark. Like I feel like my whole life was just dark. Just growing up from a young age. My parents were using since that's like my first memory, you know. And
is your family maybe the definition of family disease?
100%. 100%. It's all of us. And it really, I personally now look back and I'm like, I can't imagine being a drug addict and having 5 children. I always tell my dad, I would have sold one of my kids, you know, I just couldn't imagine. So that's also why today I just don't resent my parents because I feel like they did all they could for the position that they were in, you know? And, yeah, so.
Would you say you were maybe doomed from the womb?
100%. Definitely. That's not even a question. I feel like if your parents are drug addicts and that's pretty much all you see when you grow up. And I feel like when you're younger, those are important times to be learning from, you know, somebody who's your parent, you know, and I didn't really have that. I definitely learned the wrong things. And that kind of started.
So what did you pick up on?
I feel like I was always scared from a very young age, just seeing them because I've watched my parents both overdose and multiple times. And then also I have my brothers too, you know? So I was always like the scared one that never wanted to do anything because I watched them and that scared me, until that changed, you know? So yeah, from a very young age, I was moving around. I've seriously lived in like every city. I've just lived everywhere. I can't even count. People always say like, where'd you grow up? And I'm like, I literally, I don't even know. Everywhere, you know?
How old were you when you first picked up?
I smoked weed for the first time when I was 8 years old in the woods out of a can with my brother.
Do you mind telling us a little bit about your brothers?
No, they're just like me. They took after my parents too, except they started before me and they really took off way faster. My brothers were shooting heroin by the age of like 15 years old. So, I definitely was never going to be that. I kind of progressed a little slower than them just from seeing how they were. And, yeah.
What about a tragedy?
Yeah, I lost a brother. He was 18 years old.
How old were you?
I don't even know. Okay, so if I'm 30 now and he was 18, I think I was 20, maybe 19. Wait, I don't know, 19 or 20. And yeah, that really was, I always thought it was going to be my older brothers or my parents. I never thought it was going to be him. He never touched a needle. He never smoked crack. He never did any of that. And he was the first one to experience like going to meetings and like going to rehab and like trying, you know, to get sober. And unfortunately, I mean, when you come home from rehab to a house where everybody's using, you're probably going to use, you know? And that was his experience, and he ended up overdosing, and yeah.
What did losing your brother do for you? And you're using.
I feel like for me, that scared the living out of me. It really did. After that, I said I'm never doing anything again. Obviously, being a drug addict, I've said that a million times in my life. I remember like after he died, and like, cause we're Jewish, so we have people come over our house for like 7 days after, and
They call it Shiva.
yeah, Shiva. And my parents were, you know, not okay, and neither were my brothers, and I was like the only one that was just like so scared, like that I was never going to touch anything again. And I remember downloading an app that was like Clean Time Counter, and I can't tell you how many times I had to restart that. I always like told myself I could just smoke weed. I could just smoke weed. I could just drink. And every single time, that was not my experience. I always did something else.
So, when did you get clean?
When did I get clean? I got clean September 30th, 2000 and... When was it? I don't even know. 8 years ago. 2014, I think it was. Yeah. I was... I don't know. I mean, life was...
Are you the first one to get clean in your family?
Yes. I definitely am. And I feel like at that point when I was getting sober, oddly, there was always like sober people in our house trying to help us all get sober. And meanwhile, we were all like not sober. There would be like meetings in our living room, and like all of us were wrecked. So I feel like that was kind of like, there was just always people there, you know? And it like came to the point where I was just like constantly overdosing. I was having seizures wherever I was going. It was like a normal thought in my head to like think like, I hope I'm somewhere safe when I have my next seizure, you know? So that was just like, that's sick. That's just sick. And I remember this girl was at my house, and I ended up having a seizure, and I went to the hospital, and the next day she asked me if I wanted to go to a meeting with her. And I don't know what it was. I mean, obviously it was God. I see now why everything happened the way that it did. So I went to my first meeting in Long Beach, and I don't know, were you there that day? My first meeting in Long Beach.
It's quite possible.
Yes. I was sitting in the front row, and I had a seizure. I remember waking up, and they were taking me to the hospital, and this girl who took me to the meeting came with me to the hospital. And
did she want money? Or
no, she didn't want anything. And when we were there, she gave me a 5-month coin and said, when you get this coin, give it to somebody else. When you get 5 months, give this coin to somebody else. And in my head, I'm like, I can't even get a day. There's no way I'm going to be able to get 5 months. And yeah, I ended up just coming to those meetings all the time. And
was the meetings, maybe these people that are hanging around you now, is that like something like a barrier between you and the drug, you and picking up?
I mean, I think the people that were around me when I first tried to get sober, I mean, this wasn't even the first time I got sober, but this was like when I actually did get sober. I needed those people. I feel like if I didn't have them, I would not be sober today. I don't know if that answered that question, but I needed them, and I needed those meetings, definitely, because I didn't have anything else. I mean, my family was still getting high.
I was going to ask you. So
yes.
It's 2014.
Yes.
You got a couple other brothers that are still using, and your parents are still using.
Yeah. How
does Shayna stay sober?
I mean, I just did what everybody told me to do. You know, I tried to get sober so many times, and I always tried to do it my way, just like everybody else tries to do. And then it came to the point where like I just like didn't want to die. I didn't want to live like that anymore. Just seeing I mean, I was going to die. The way that I was going to die. And I did not want to. And I really thought about my little brother who didn't get the chance to actually get sober and stay sober. So that was kind of like a motivation. And
do you think you were maybe an attraction for your family members to want to get sober?
I mean, I hope that was the case, you know. I know my older brother Joe got sober, I'm going to say a year, maybe like 2 years after me. The thing is like, I feel like I wouldn't have gotten sober so my little brother is the one who first took me and Joe to our first meeting ever. You know, I had no idea what anything was, recovery or anything. So that was always like in the back of my head. And then just having, like I said, those people around me that were sober, trying to help us no matter what, definitely played a big part in it.
So one of your brothers gets sober. Now let's fast forward a little bit. You still have another brother that's out there.
Yeah.
You have a mom and dad that are still using.
Yeah.
How does this play out?
I mean, that was the hardest part, was being sober and watching them just die pretty much. I mean, my parents aren't like just people that are just going to be drinking and like chilling, you know, like my dad's shooting dope and overdosing every other day, you know? So, and me, I feel like in the beginning, I really tried like too hard to try and save them and get them sober. And that totally backfired on me because I ended up being miserable. And there was times where I just couldn't eat. I was just sick. I was so stressed out. I didn't want to do anything because I just tried so hard to control them and push recovery when they weren't ready, you know?
Did they ever get ready?
They did. Thank God. My dad actually just celebrated a year 2 weeks ago, and my mom's celebrating a year in 2 weeks, actually. So that's like, I mean, that's something I never, ever thought would happen. Like I was saying at my dad's anniversary, I gave him his coin and I wrote like a little thing. And, you know, I always thought about what I was going to say at his funeral. You know, I never thought about what I was going to say at his 1 year anniversary. So that just like is like, God is so good. It's really crazy.
So, I mean, a lot of people would feel hopeless for certain individuals, right? Countless times, countless tries, countless, you know, not failures, but not being able to stay sober. Your family kind of seems like every one of them could be part of that definition, that especially maybe your other brother, Josh. Can you tell us about him?
Oh, God. Oh, man,
Can you tell
that's
us some
just
stories?
crazy. I mean, he is a miracle to even be alive right now. And that's why I feel like no matter how long I'm sober for, like, I feel like I have such a good relationship with God because it's like impossible for me not to, because I've just seen God work in my family's life in like ways that I can't even explain.
But what about the people, and when you're going through it and you see it not working out and you see them still using?
It's tough. I mean, I've had people constantly tell me like, just leave them alone. Just leave them alone. You can't save them. If they don't want it, they don't want it. But I think the part for me is that I know that deep down they wanted it. They just couldn't grasp it because no matter what, they constantly kept trying. Like my dad was constantly trying to go to meetings and meet with sponsors, no matter if he was high or not, you know? So I know that he was like, he had it in him. He wanted it. He just couldn't grasp it at the time, especially because my parents could never do it together. They could never do it together. It was either one of them was doing good and then the other one was doing bad and then they both fell down, you know? So I think a big part in my parents getting sober was separating them. And they've never in their life have been separated while they were married before. And I feel like that is the biggest part of them being sober, is that you can't do it together. You just can't. My experience, you can't. I had to separate with my fiance because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it with him, you know? So, I mean, they were living in a crack house in Far Rockaway, and the landlord just like would not kick them out. they hardly ever paid rent, and he just wouldn't kick them out. And it just like blew my mind. I was just waiting for the day for them to just get kicked out. And, and then my mom overdosed, went to rehab, and my dad overdosed again, went to rehab, and the landlord actually paid me $10,000 eventually to get my parents out. And the thing is that they weren't even planning on going back there. The house was disgusting. My brother destroyed every part of that apartment. He made it was literally a crack house. So that kind of was, I feel like at that time when the landlord like did that, it was like the perfect time because my parents needed to start over. Like I had to put all their stuff in storage units. I didn't have money to pay for that. Just stuff they need when they first got sober. It just really, my dad needed a new car, So I feel like God just provides whenever, when you need, always.
So they went to sober houses.
So then they went to sober houses. My dad is managing a men's sober house in Freeport, and my mom is actually in a women's sober house in Freeport as well. And they're separated, but together, and they have like their own separate recovery, which is what you really need trying to get sober, Can't go to the same meetings and,
Can you tell us a little bit about your recovery? Ups and downs, roller coaster rides, more engaged at times.
Yeah.
Maybe the family's attracting you back now. They're like, how does this work?
Yeah, good question. So, I feel like for the first like 3-4 years, the one thing that I always did too was I was always at meetings. I was always doing stuff. When people asked me to speak, I would speak. I feel like after like 4 or 5 years, that kind of like died down a little for me. I feel like life just happened. I work a lot. I have a fiance. We live together. I got engaged. That's not really like a good excuse to, like move away from recovery. But like I said before, the one thing that I feel like keeps me sober is just my connection with God. That really.
So maybe this is a definition of like your sobriety is reliant upon something greater than yourselves, maybe not so much
100%
on meetings.
And I feel like I should be doing more. I feel like who am I to not give back what was so freely given to me? And I think about that all the time. And I feel like 2 weeks ago when I was at my dad's anniversary, that kind of like lit a little fire under my ass, and that's why I said yes to you, because I normally say no.
For the record, she does.
Yes. I always do. And I don't know, I just, when I'm at a meeting and I'm around sober people and I'm like doing the right thing, I just feel so good. It's like a drag to get there, and that's the most annoying part, is like getting there. But once I'm there, I'm just so happy to be there.
So who judges Shayna on, is she doing enough? Is she not doing enough? Are you the hardest critic on yourself?
I am. I feel like I've been through a lot in my life, and I feel like I'm at a great place right now. I obviously could do things better, but I feel good. Like God is good. My life is good right now. Thank God for once.
Do you still talk to those same girls and women from when you first came around?
I really don't. I don't. I don't know. Things happen and you meet new people. Most of my friends today are sober, though. Like the people that I do hang out with. I do have people from work that are not sober.
Wait,
everybody,
normal people?
Normal people. But everybody at work knows me that I'm sober, Everybody there. So it's not, and I don't hide it, because I've had people come up to me who knew that I was sober and ask for help, So I definitely don't hide that I'm sober, because there's people out there that have no idea, have never heard of anything to do with recovery, and that's really sad,
If your brother that passed away, if he could see your family now.
I feel like this is all he ever wanted, because he, like myself, has watched my family struggle our entire life. So to see like where it is today, I feel like that's all he would ever have wanted. And I mean, to see even like that Josh is still alive is kind of freaking crazy to me. And I mean, he's doing okay. I mean, he's not ripping and running on the streets and riding his bike in 10-degree water in the ocean. I mean, I don't know. I'm really hoping. I mean, we've really been trying to, I mean, for once in his life, he's not on anything, which has played a huge part because he's always been on maintenance. He's always been on everything. So he can never like grasp. He's always had that block between God and that. And I feel like now I've never in my life heard him speak about God the way that he does now. It honestly blows my mind. And I'm just praying that he, does what we did to get sober. I mean, I've learned to kind of just like let it be now because I clearly don't have the power to, get anybody sober.
Would you say, just for like people maybe who are not familiar with a lot of this stuff, the Suboxone, the methadone, those have been tough for Josh to get off to eventually get clean?
100%. That's like one thing that I'm so grateful for is that when I got sober, I didn't take anything because I felt like and I say this to him now. I mean, some people need it when they first get sober. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like it's not something that you stay on for the rest of your life. Because for me, I look at it as like you're still relying on something else to make you feel better when you should be relying on something else to make you feel better, And I feel like his experience, it was always he just always needed to take something to feel normal. And he never had that experience with nothing. And it's very hard for him. I mean, he's 33, 34 years old, and he's been doing this his entire life. Hearing voices, like lighting himself on fire, like crazy, crazy shit. And I don't know. Yesterday he called me for my advice on his fourth step and what I did, and that was like, I mean, the fact that I could even text him now blows my mind. He sent me a picture of himself and I'm like, I just never thought that he would live this long, honestly. So this is how I know God is so real and God is there. Every experience that I've had, I always said, why are you doing this to my family? Like, why us? We're not bad people. But now I see why everything happened the way that it did,
All right, I got a couple questions.
Oh, God.
No, it's nothing serious. I would say maybe you agree that the recovery world, the addiction world, the treatment centers are mostly maybe male dominant, right? That there maybe aren't so many women that stick around and stay sober to help other women.
Yeah.
What's the plans for Shayna in her future?
I mean, I've had a lot of people say that they, need me. Like, I should be sharing my story with other women because, I mean, I've sponsored women in the past. I've definitely, done all that. And I'm definitely selfish for not doing any of that right now. And don't get me wrong, if somebody comes up to me and needs help, I'm gonna help, but I'm just not there to be like, hey, you need help, But I know that I should be doing that more, and I want to definitely try to be doing that more, I don't know.
What's the best thing that's happened to Shayna since she's gotten sober, outside of the family?
Outside of the
maybe
family.
Personal relationship wise.
Or
whatever, career wise, what?
Yeah. I got engaged. I'm getting married in October.
I'll be waiting for my invitation.
Yes. And then, I mean, my fiance is sober as well. That's amazing in itself. I mean, we used together for years. And he was like the freaking devil when he was out there. And, there was a point when he got 2 years clean and I had like 3 or 4 years at the time, and he relapsed, and that was like a whole nother like ball game, you know, because I feel like it was when it's with my family, I don't know, it's kind of, I don't know, it's a different experience, obviously, but with him and me actually staying sober through that was not easy at all. There was times where I was literally holding heroin in my bra that was his, so he wouldn't do it, you know, and I feel like at that time when that happened, I was so spiritually connected and I was doing everything that I should be doing for me to not want to use that, you know. I looked at it like I'm so disgusted, I don't ever want to do that, you know. And I'm so grateful for our relationship today, you know. It's completely different from when we were dating back in the day using, you know. That was just like my drug buddy, you know. But now we are actually in like a healthy relationship, which I never thought that I would have in my life. And it makes me so happy because he has such a strong connection with God too. And I feel like with God, like when you have a connection like that, I feel like anything's possible. I don't know. And it makes me not as scared of like him relapsing. I mean, obviously that's possible, but he talks about God every day, you know, and that makes me so happy. So yeah, I mean,
Do you have any fears?
of course, I live in fear a majority of the time, you know, because I don't know, I've never experienced what I'm experiencing now with my whole family being sober, you know. It's scary. Like, I feel like I have the worst PTSD. It's not even funny. Like, when my dad doesn't text me back after like 2 minutes, I call him right away because I think he's dead. You know, it's really sad, honestly. There was a point where I could not even sleep with my phone on silent because I was so used to getting those phone calls in the middle of the night of something happening. And it's like every time my mom calls me or my dad calls me, I have to like listen to their voice and make sure they're okay, you know, because I'm just so used to something happening. So for that to be okay, like for today, it's a freeing feeling, but
Are you more fearful of them using than you?
100%. I mean, obviously anything is possible. I could use also, but I don't feel that I would use. I feel like I've been through so much shit in recovery with them and myself that I could have used a million times, and I don't find that as a solution anymore. You know? I just don't.
I don't think I have any more questions. You want to say anything before we end the show? You did a great job, Shayna.
Thank you.
Very open and honest. Love it.
I don't know. I feel like if you're out there, I mean, you're not just going to be, I mean, if you're like me and my family, you're not just going to be like chilling, getting high, having fun for the rest of your life. You're going to die, or, you know, I just feel like it's, especially now, like everything's laced with everything. When Frankie relapsed after 2 years, he did half of a bag and overdose. You know, people are dying every single, it's just crazy. It's sad, you know. I don't know. My advice would be definitely there is a way out, you know. I've experienced that myself, and so have you. So,
all right. Thank you, Shayna.
No problem.
And if anybody is struggling or needs help or knows somebody that needs help, SoberSundaysPodcast.com, or feel free to contact myself or Shayna. Thank you.